you're going to be coming to Brighton and speaking on Wednesday, August 31st at the Brighton Area Chamber of Commerce's Women's Business Network of Michigan. I guess if you can, sort of give us a little sample or an idea of what it is you're going to be talking about.
Well, I think I'm most known for my the first Ironman I ever did back in 1982, and it was and I've since written a book about it called Crawl of Fame, and I literally crawled across the finish line. So I'm known for being the girl who will crawl to get to the finish line. And that race was captured on ABC Wildlife Sports, and it's on YouTube, and it will live forever. And it's considered kind of one of the moments that put the sport of triathlon on the map back in the day. And so when I present, I usually talk about kind of the opportunity that triathlon has afforded me. And there's other ways, of course, to experience this in your life, but to kind of find that way to dig down deep, that part of yourself that is that's unknown until you really have to dig for it. And I'm so just, in very general, terms, it's that ability to test yourself and, to overcome challenges and to realize that depth of your potential. And so that really applies to anything that you do in life. Coming to talk to the women, it's really, I'm in partnership with Ed, and I don't know if you've, if you know about Ed's participation in the Ironman through the Ironman Foundation, raising funds for the Ironman Foundation and participating in Kona this year he'll be racing for the Ironman Foundation.
And we're talking about, it's Ed Pincos, or how do you pronounce his last name?
PN Cause.
PN Cause.
PN Cause, yeah. And so he's your local athlete, and he invited me. We spent time together at the recent World Championship in Utah. It was sort of the 2021's makeup because they couldn't get back to Kona with COVID. So they had a race in Utah, and his girlfriend Doe was racing. He was there as a support person, and I got to spend a lot of time together hanging out all week, and he sort of suggested I come and help him with his campaign, his fundraising campaign in Brighton. So that's kind of the backstory. And so by speaking to these women, I'm really going to be telling them about my experience being, just an average college student who had never done a triathlon, was not a swimmer, biker, or runner. And I saw the Ironman on television. I thought, well, that's the perfect project I need for the senior project to graduate from college. And so I went over, just basically did most of my training 3 weeks before the race, got to Kona and figured out, I hadn't done the distances for the bike or the swim yet. And so I'm just that's really kind of my story, is that you don't have to be a trained, an elite athlete to do something that's pretty challenging athletically. And
well, I think that's interesting. Like you said, that you saw the triathlon or Ironman, and you thought this would be the perfect project. I guess I'm wondering. I don't know that most people would make that connection in their mind.
There were some really good views of good-looking men in Speedos on the beach.
Okay, now we understand.
Yeah. That's a little clarity there. No, so it was just kind of a gut reaction. It was like, wow, these hot guys, Hawaii, and then the race started, and then it was sort of like, okay, there's something else going on here, and it was that ability to kind of almost feel their struggle, and the cameras got in close, and you could it stuck with me, and it made no sense. And that's another one of the lessons, the takeaways from that initial Ironman, was that just if something doesn't make sense to you, it seems kind of crazy and out of line, but yet it kind of gets in on a cellular level and you can't shake it. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to those things that really talk to your inner self, the more of the intuitive part of you that is saying, I mean, basically I was yearning for a challenge like that.
Right.
And it came in that form. It could have been in many different forms, but that's the form it took. And it kind of became a roadmap for my life to sort of lean in and really lean in when things sound crazy and hard, but yet it has to spark my imagination. And
as you said, the ultimate message is about empowerment and never quitting, obviously, as exemplified by your crawl across that finish line. So, I guess if you can take us back to that moment where you realize the finish line is coming up, but you're running out of, I imagine you're running out of energy to make it across otherwise. Yeah. I mean, what's going through your mind when you see that?
Well, it's funny because every time I see it, I think now, like, oh, would I have the courage to dig that deep again? And it was, I didn't know that was, I had the ability to go that far within myself at the time. And then, and now that I do know I can do it, would I want to? But in that first race, I was leading the race, which was that's the other crazy part. I wasn't supposed to be. I was just going to finish it, write it up as a project, and graduate from. I was attending Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in Central California, and graduate and probably go get a teaching credential, and that was going to be it. But what I discovered was that, I had some talent in endurance. And so here I am leading the race, and it's being televised. And then within a half mile of the finish line, like you said, running out of energy, it was like glycogen debt, because I didn't really have there wasn't no injury. It just looked pretty bad. My legs went out. They just collapsed.
Right.
And then I couldn't get back up. I mean, it was like I couldn't just sort of say stand up. I had to really kind of go through this whole, emotional roller coaster of being embarrassed, because when my legs gave out, so did everything in my GI. So that was, I'm just suffering, this intense humiliation and this intense desire to get up and finish. I mean, it was pretty crazy. And so the ego had to be put in the back burner, and the desire to finish what I started took over. And so I figured out I could use my arms to form a tripod and stand up. And once I stood up, I could start walking. And then I thought, now I've got to try and finish this thing, but not just finish it, but win it. And I knew another woman was coming. Her name is Kathleen McCartney, and she eventually did catch me, but it took to within about 10 feet of the finish line, and I probably fell about 4 times, getting up, walking, trying to run, falling, getting up, and picturing the streets leading to the finish line of Kona are quiet. I mean, everyone is just quiet around me, and I'm blinded by the TV camera lights, but I just sense all these people who are just kind of urging me on, but it's just kind of, could hear a pin drop. It was pretty wild. And what was going through my mind was that I had discovered something about myself, and I sum it up saying I discovered my self-worth. I'd always been the girl who took shortcut, the easy way. I didn't really apply myself, just kind of skating along in life, until this moment really asked of me to be somebody different. And so I kind of discovered that as the day was going on, especially in the later parts of the marathon, it was getting harder and harder. And I just discovered this part of myself that was willing to stay in it. Part of it was, I'm winning, and that feels really good. I can be good at something. But the other part of me was just, I had to let go of how it was going to look. It wasn't going to be that picture perfect moment of throwing my arms up in the air across the finish line. I was a mess at the end. And I still felt that kind of that worthiness of finishing what I started and knowing that I would have that forever if I could just get to the finish line.
Yeah, I guess, looking at the video, as you said, I mean, you said it, you're a mess. But it's, I guess one way to look at this is victory doesn't always look like what you think it will look like.
No.
You're right. The classic thing would be, you're right, you break the tape and your arms are raised in victory and everyone's cheering. And yet, looking how you finished this race, I almost feel like this really more exemplifies victory in the sense of overcoming and making that happen. And so being able to apply that as a life lesson is certainly amazing.
Well, yeah, and it took some time to kind of let it all kind of gel for me. Next thing I know, our sport's turning professional. I'm not getting a teaching credential, and I'm going around the world doing triathlons as a professional athlete. That was a ride I never thought I was going to take, and I've been involved with the sport in some form ever since. Now I'm an ambassador for the Ironman Foundation. I'm on the board of the Ironman Foundation. I work with a shoe company, being an ambassador, athlete ambassador for Hoka brand of shoes, and I do race announcing and speaking, and I just thought, when's this ride going to end? And it hasn't. And I was fortunate enough to go back and race Kona in 2019, and it was, so the 50th anniversary is right before I will turn 70, and the idea is maybe to go back to Kona, and not to try and grab a spot on the podium, because that has been motivation in the past, but just celebrate this lifestyle, this sport that I've been involved with for 45 years. I won't be at that point. So it's something I say, if you say it out loud, like, I'll want to be there for the 50th running of the Ironman. I was there for my first year was the 5th, and now to go back for the 50th. If you say it out loud, it seems a little less crazy, and you can kind of, you should really sort of invite people to support you on your big challenges. So we'll see. I mean, the body has something to say about this, but those kind of big goals are important to just kind of lay out. And especially as you age, I think you need to find something that sort of keeps you in the youth game. And thinking about doing an Ironman at 70 is going to keep me in a mindset that says, well, I've better do some things all along the way now, because it's coming up in about 5 years to keep myself strong enough to even think about that.
And so I guess, while maybe competing in an Ironman triathlon, maybe that's not for everybody, but the motivation that you're talking about of whatever your goal is, obviously this helps to drive that internal mechanism. And I guess watching again, and this is just one point in your life, and but that moment when you're crawling across the finish line, I can't help but look at that and not think that, was there a point where you just said, no, I'm done, I'm just gonna quit, or were you just almost instantaneously determined, I'm just not going to quit, I don't care what it takes?
The one part that, while I was still leading the race, I was very much trying to hang on to that, because I sort of wrapped a lot of self-esteem around that part of it. But when Kathleen McCartney did pass me, those 20 feet from the finish line, and I did see her go by, I'm on the ground, but I could see her legs go by, there was a moment there where I just, that deep wounding disappointment hit me, and that's when my head just drops, and I can't pick my head up.
Right.
And I kind of had to give myself a little pep talk, like, now it's not what you thought it was going to be, messy or joyful, whatever. It's just not the win. So what is this? It's finishing. And it took me, I'm crawling along, and it took me probably a few seconds to kind of just come to that conclusion that this is not failure because I didn't win. This is just about finishing what you start, because this is, I mean, I just knew that this is going to be a part of my life. This is going to be the fabric of my life, is knowing how to finish what I start. And it was that was what I was thinking about when I was crawling along. It was like, it's okay.
Right. It's
going to be okay to just finish. And turns out that was kind of what people saw. They saw this determination to finish, and that really is the spirit of an endurance event. It's not about winning. It's about an individual fighting all their demons to get to the finish line.
Wow, and it's a great story, and again, this applies I think in all facets of life, because there's different finish lines for us, professional, personal, and otherwise. And again, Julie Moss will be speaking Wednesday, August 31st at 11:30 a.m. at Oak Pointe Country Club. This is part of the Greater Brighton Area Chamber of Commerce Women's Business Network of Michigan. And if people want more information, they can contact the Greater Brighton Area Chamber of Commerce, 810-227-5086, or online, brightoncoc.org, to get more information. And Julie, thank you so much for talking with us and sharing this story. Again, your memoir, Crawl of Fame, on Pegasus Books, and I'm sure that can be found wherever books are sold.
Oh, John, thank you so much for having me. And you turned an early morning here in California. I'm kind of stumbling on my words. Thank you so much for just your very eloquent interview.
Oh no, hey, it was easy for me, but. What a great story. Thank you for sharing it with us, and I think we look forward to when you're here on the 31st, and I think people will enjoy hearing your message directly. So, Julie Moss, thank you.
Bye-bye, John.
All right, bye-bye.